I could definitely. Oh, that's good. So someone's going to be like listening to the beginning of the show, going, "What the heck was that?" All right,
Yeah.
here comes the noise, people. It's about to
Get those words!
Well, let that be your good morning, everyone. It's time for the Bid Nerds, your daily nerd out on the most interesting cars of the day and all the automotive enthusiast auction sites, including Bring a Trailer, PCAR Market, Rad For Sale, Cars and Bids, and whoever else happens to have an automotive auction site at the moment. They seem to come and go. Good morning, Michael Deeb, my partner over there in the San Francisco Bay Area. How are you this morning?
Good morning, JP. What's happening, man? I'm like dragging ass onto the set here.
Yeah,
Coffee,
well,
please.
that's kind of how you and I roll. This is the beginning of our day. We
How,
mainline a cup of coffee and then wing this stupid show that nobody watches, right?
yeah. How do how do two bald, overweight guys that aren't morning people start off with a morning show? Like, I don't get it. Where did we go wrong?
Man.
How did
We're
we
not
get
even
this wrong?
boomers. Jeez, I know. It's crazy. What is going on? We have not
Ugh.
figured out our jam. This is what we do on the show. If you've never watched before, we sort through all the automotive auction sites. We dig through hundreds of cars and whittle them down to the most interesting cars of the day. We'll nerd about those individual cars, and then we'll make predictions as to what we think those individual cars will sell for, will hammer for at the end of their respective auctions today. But we always begin the show by going over yesterday's cars and our predictions first, just to show that we really don't know what we're talking about. So as we always say, do not take our advice. We are not financial experts by any means. We don't know anything about cars other than the stupid stuff that's really worthless. So again, not advice, just pure entertainment. And if it's even that, we're not quite sure.
You got to Matumbo the advice. No.
Exactly. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe, like, and notification button, because the big hack is to make sure that you hit the notification button, because this show is live. We do this Monday through Friday. Fresh nerds, the most recent, the most least smelly nerds are the freshest nerds. So you want the nerds that are right now, not yesterday's nerds, because that's old. So
nobody wants blue cheese nerds.
Gets musty. So the notification button will let you know when the newest episode is available. The newest episode, you might go on to our YouTube channel and see that, wow, there's no episode there today. And in fact, there would be one had you hit the notification button. YouTube does this weird game, but.
Or we forgot to do a show.
Or we forgot to do the show. It's entirely possible that we just forgot. We are now available. If you're in the car and you don't want to watch us, I mean, who would really want to watch us? What we have going on here.
Face for radio.
Yeah, exactly. You can now listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the places that podcasts typically are. You should be able to find us on all those darn places. We are now uploading to those. They are not live there, but you can download us and listen to us in the car and that kind of stuff. So it's
technology.
Great place to catch up on all your bid nerds, and we do have all the old episodes there as well, so you can go through hundreds of bid nerds episodes and get all kinds of useless car information.
Our show is prescribed to insomniacs that need to fall asleep, so maybe consider that before you turn us on while you're driving. You don't want to fall asleep and go off the road.
Shot of tequila, hang out in the hot tub, watch listen to some bid nerds, and then wind up face down in a bubbling brew of your own stew, dead in your hot tub. That is the kind of thing that could happen from listening to bid nerds. I'm just warning.
Well, that's the best thing that could happen.
I mean,
worst thing is you wind up buying a car based on what you thought we liked.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of the cars that we think are interesting, when you hear about these cars, the cars that we talk about today, go over to the respective platforms. Go over to Cars and Bids. Go over to Bring a Trailer. Go over to Rad For Sale. Go over to PCAR Market. And in the comment sections below where we talk about the cars, say that you heard about the car from Bid Nerds. It really helps us out a lot.
Pick a fight. Just be like, you know what the Bid Nerds say.
Even better. Get
pick a fight.
Yeah, we need to do.
Well, Bid Nerds said that car ain't going anywhere. And see if you could start some shit online.
Oh, I love it. All right, well let's do that. Let's start with yesterday's cars. We had some pretty nice
weird
ones.
Collection of cars yesterday.
We're
all over the board. Yeah, really were.
Well, I mean, the big car of the day you can't go wrong with was this CGT, right? Or not CGT. It's the FGT, the Ford GT, the 2006. Tell me about this car. Tell our audience about this car. All right.
So, JP, Ford successfully raced a car that looked like this in the late 1960s. They won Le Mans with the mission to beat Ferrari at its own game. And Ford's history kind of repeated itself. In the aughts, they went out of their way to build a car that was evocative of the original GT40, and they named it the Ford GT. This is a two-seat, mid-engine V8 car that is designed simply to have fun driving and turn a quick lap time. This car uses a 5.4-liter V8 that is supercharged and makes 550 horsepower and has 500 stomping pounds of torque. This is a really fast car. Very exotic for Ford. It dips the toe in the water for them. So far up market, it's really out of their realm. They actually undersold this car. I think these things were like $160,000 brand new, and they have regularly traded in the high 200s to the mid $300,000 range from almost the time that they were new. The car did launch right before a recession, but as soon as the market corrected, the values of the GTs went back to where they were trading when they were coming off the showroom floor. So a ton of performance here, limited production, very exotic car by all accounts, easy on the eyes, and it's aged really well. So the big question now that we're seeing crazy numbers in a heightened and spiky market this summer, where do we think this really nice one's going to land? So I said $340,000 before you made your bid, but I said I would not be surprised if this car ran on by $360,000, and you went ahead and took the $360,000 marker because you were smart and took the over. And damn it, JP, you got a Yahtzee, and you weren't even watching this auction close. Our car landed on and sold at $360,000 on BAT. Now, this is a 3,000-mile example with all four options in an unusual colorway. I still think that's a fair value for what you have here because this is a desirable example in collector car condition. So a great result, and justifiably so, I think. What do you say, Jay?
Yeah, I these cars are so dang bitchin'. I love just the little details. I mean, going through the interior pics are just great. You would never, ever, in any other Ford car ever, would you go through the interior pictures and go, oh, look at these attention to detail. Look how awesome that switch looks. I mean, I love this Macintosh stereo. I know you can get that Macintosh stereo for other cars. I just love how vintage it looks, yet it's, so modern. But I mean,
there's toggle switches on the dash, which they had on the real race car. A bunch of toggle switches across the dash, and then the seats have these little circular rivets built into them, and the seats I think we decided were done by Sparco. Look at that, JP. That's really cool.
And they're metal. They're aluminum. They're not plastic bits. You would look. You could see something like this showing up in a Mustang or something like that. But when you actually touch them, it's going to be like little plastic bits that will break in 3 or 4 years. This really is a timeless car. And how awesome is it that an American car company did something like this? And it gives you hope that an American car company can do something like this with their latest iteration of the Ford GT. By all accounts, it's a technological marvel, but it does not invoke any romance whatsoever. It is just a wind tunnel machine. It's
a race car. It's a homologation race car.
I could care less about that car. I want nothing to do with it. Whereas this car, this is the type of car that you look at and you just go, oh, you just get that. I want this so badly.
When Ford built this car, they were drawing on their most colorful and successful history and bringing it forward with modern technology, and they successfully did that. And with the current GT, basically Ford engineers read the rule book and then built a car that fits within the parameters of the rule book. So there's literally no passion involved with the new car. Don't get me wrong, it's a high performance machine, but it does not stir the soul.
Yeah, and in pictures and in real life, you see an FGT, the new one, and you're not going to mistake it for an NSX if they're parked next to one another. But in pictures, it's kind of like, is that the new C8 NSX? I mean, they all just kind of like look the same because they're all kind of following the same rule book. This is one of those cars. This 2006 generation of the GT40 is a car that you are not going to mistake for anything else. And that is so hard to do, and has been hard to do in the automotive world for a very long time. This is Ford's best hit of all time. I think this is just their high water mark. And
congratulations to the new owner. You got yourself a nice example. All the options, cool colorway, beautiful car.
Couple of really jealous bid nerds over here. All right. There were cars on our list.
Is that why our logo is green?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. That's a good point. Stickers are coming. We got stickers. We got swag coming, everybody. Keep watching. We'll get some free stickers to everybody. Okay, let's get to some of the other cars that we talked about yesterday. There were some cars on the list that were not quite so exciting, like this Nissan Pathfinder.
On Cars and Bids, Doug DeMiro found, I think, friend of the bid nerds, the photographer's garage in Martinez, California, sourced this 150,000 mile 1995 Nissan Pathfinder SE. This is a normally aspirated 3-liter V6 4x4 with an automatic transmission, but this car looks to be bone stock and really nice original condition. We see Toyotas hold their value pretty well, so the question was, how well could a Nissan do from that same era? And I don't know. This result is, I think, still a little underwhelming. I think the car here is worth more than the money paid, in my opinion. I said $7,000. You said $6,000. Betting the platform, probably betting the brand and not necessarily the model. Anyway, the car sold for $6,350. But if this was a Toyota 4Runner in this condition, would it have brought $10,000, JP?
But I really think it was a platform fail. This is not a car that belongs on Cars and Bids. This is a car that belongs not even on BAT. The most money for this car would have been brought on Rad For Sale. This is something that, because look, Cars and Bids and Rad For Sale are relatively new platforms, and you can get your car to market fairly quick on those platforms, unlike BAT where you got to wait for months. With a car that's under $10,000, you really want to wait around for the difference of $600 or $700 or maybe even $1,000. Whereas you put this on something like Rad For Sale, and they're going to play this up. This is right in their wheelhouse. This is for people that want something like this. They're looking for stuff from this era, and I think this is a car like this is going to pop on that platform, whereas in Cars and Bids it just blends in with the other kind of mediocre stuff, and it's not really special in any way. And because the website isn't going, Cars and Bids isn't going to prop it up as some kind of something special, whereas Rad For Sale would be like, look, this is totally within your rad realm. This is the vehicle. This is a great way to get into a rad car that you can bring to a rad event and be respectable and actually have a good car while you're at it. So I think this thing is definitely closer to $10,000 on Rad For Sale.
I've just had a very clear conscious thought, which is probably the first one all morning. But JP, since we've been watching just about every lot that has closed on Rad For Sale since they started, has anybody photographed a car to put on there with Radwood stickers on the car itself? How come nobody's played up the irony of the 80s era and the platform itself? Like, wouldn't it be great to have a picture of your Nissan Pathfinder with Radwood tape deck stickers on the back window, and then take one photograph of, you standing there in an overcoat with a boombox, lifting it up in the air and taking, a scenic shot of the car from the second story of your garage, that'd be awesome. Like, why isn't anybody doing that? Like, have fun with it. It's really weird that nobody's truly embraced the spirit of Radwood while selling their cars on their platform. Yeah. So anyway, whatever.
I don't think any of the platforms allow photos of people in the ads.
That makes sense. I get you.
I still think you can achieve an ironic ad Like I was actually talking to Warren yesterday. I have an old Mercedes that I'm considering throwing on Rad For Sale. It's a 99 E430
It's the
Sport.
most modern car that fits in the era.
Yeah, honestly, it doesn't quite work, and I'm reluctant to put it on their site, not for my car's sake, but I kind of feel bad putting it on there for their sake. I don't think it really belongs. But I'm sitting there going, well, how can I play this up? How can I make this work? And if I do run that car on that platform, I've got a Motorola StarTech on the shelf back here. I've got some other 90s stuff I can kind of lay around, and just kind of like have it sitting around in the car for the pictures and everything, and that might be kind of fun. I hate the car has a really modern, not even a really modern, it's like a early aughts, 2001, or not 2001, probably like a 2010, so it's a mid-aughts stereo, so it's a way too modern a stereo deck. So the interior picks, I don't know, I'm really reluctant.
The StarTech is the way to go. The boombox is really an 80s, would be a great prop for an 80s car, but the StarTech would be great for that car. And why not try it? What the heck?
I'm going to reach out and say, hey, can we throw people in there? Because if that's the case, then I'm going to, put a 90s power suit on, and just look like, I'll get some big baggy suit and with my stupid, and I'll have my bald head. I'll let my Chimo ring grow in.
Peak lapels, and a paisley tie with a really tiny knot.
Exactly. All right, that's going to happen. Or like the double-breasted, or the big the 4-button jacket.
Double-breasted would be hot.
Oh man, double-breasted is kind of double-breasted
went into
the
early 90s.
Early 90s, if you're like not MC Hammer, but MC Hammer, right? Too legit to quit.
Earth tones, brown suits and gold suits were big in that era.
Black jacket with really big pleats on your khaki pants.
Seriously.
All right, that's really nerding. All right, what else did we talk about yesterday?
JP, you Yahtzeed the Ford. You got the Nissan Pathfinder. Let's take a look at this 1985 Ferrari 308 GTS that was on PCAR Market. The main thing to understand here is on this particular Ferrari, we're looking at 30,000 original miles, and they paint metered the car for the photographs to prove, or at least to demonstrate, that this is the original colorway, the original paint on the car. So
which is what?
Rosso Corsa.
Okay, because remember, there are some people now listening to Bid Nerds. They're not watching. They're not seeing the picture. So we got to talk about that stuff now.
Big whoop. Yeah. Doesn't look like there was a current belt service, but that would not hold back the price, in my opinion. What I think is holding back this car is that you've got a Ferrari on PCAR Market, and I think this was just a huge fail. So I said that I thought this car might make it up to $75,000 and then wind up in the deal tank for more money than that, because I think this is a really nice example of the last year of the 308. You took the over at 76. And of course, PCAR Market kind of let their consignor down, which we've seen happen before. This car made it to just $58,000 and failed to sell at that number. And then it wound up in the deal tank at $72,500. So one, we can sort of pick on PCAR Market for not having a buyer for this Ferrari. And then two, at $72,500, I still think there's equity in the car. In my opinion, in this market, a low-mile, original-paint 308 is an $85,000, $90,000 car like this. This is a quattro valve that has the 4-valve head, 240 horsepower. This was sort of the best performing expression of the 308 series before they modified the car with larger displacement in the 328 and then onto the 348, which we'll cover one of those today on the show. So anyway, JP, I don't think either one of us are surprised by this, but $72,000 for the reserve, I think that's still a deal at that number. I think that's a good price to buy this car at. So anyway, what do you think? Is this,
I actually had a question for you. The difference between a 308 in this version, in this late version, versus a 328, which is the better car? Is there a reason to choose a 308, a late 308 over a 328? Is there service things that are different that make the 308 a better car? Is there anything that handles about it, or is it just simply a displacement difference?
It's a displacement difference. The other thing, when the 328 came out, it had 28 individual computers on board, and believe it or not, JP, in 1986 and 1987, articles were written about how technologically advanced the Ferrari 328 was because of all these onboard computers to monitor sensors and whatnot, and all this stuff. But that in Ferrari and Italian speak, that's just more things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
The 308 is more analog. The 328 has more electricity running through it. It's a heavier car, and despite the bigger displacement and maybe a teeny bit more horsepower, I could not argue that it is a faster or better handling car. The 328s are unloved for a long time for a good reason. They're just not great cars. They evolved the bodywork, but they really didn't evolve the performance of the car, which is a shame. The cars didn't really get going down the road better until the 348 came out, and they turned the motor long ways in the back of the car, got a lot more power, better brakes, better suspension. It goes on and on and on. But 328s and 308s are just inherently good-looking cars, but not great performing. They don't perform as well as they look.
Well, they sure do look amazing, and another car that I look at and just start to go, but I know that it's going to be heartache, unfortunately. All right, let's move on to something maybe a little bit more reliable that we talked about yesterday.
Which one? The Mercedes or the BMW?
The 911. Let's talk about the 993. Or not the 9. Wasn't there a 993 yesterday? Sorry.
There were no Porsches. Yesterday was no Porsche Wednesday.
Okay, well, let's go with this really piece of crap BMW then. That thing was terrible.
Okay. The 1989 BMW 324 TD Touring, which is a wagon, and D for diesel. This was a very interesting car because they were never sold. This particular version of the E30 platform was not sold in the United States. And I'm not 100% confident in that statement, but I believe it to be true. BMW forums, fillet me. Go ahead. But I don't think that this car or this model was ever offered legally in the United States. Interesting car. It's had a motor swap. It's got 140,000 miles on the chassis. Look at these pictures. The paint is cracking and peeling off of this car. It's got aftermarket suspension, aftermarket wheels. I don't even think that interior is original to the car, but it's kind of cool. That purple sort of hurricane cloth interior on the sports seats is neat, but the one in this car is in disrepair. And then I think the last picture you looked at, JP, before we signed off on this car, there's cracks in the dash. Yeah. So you're really just buying a shell of a car. It might go down the road okay, but it's never going to win a car show. Cosmetically, this car was challenged. That being said, E30s have a cult following, and for good reason. They're just lively, fun, efficient chassis that are great to drive in almost any itineration, including this diesel wagon.
What was your bid on this thing?
I went 10 grand. You went 9,500. And this car sold for $13,000. And JP, I'm not surprised by that at all.
Wow, I still am. This thing, there wasn't a single good thing about this car. Other than on paper, it was cool. Everything else, absolute terrible car. I mean, nothing was good on it. I want it to be good. It looks kind of cool from 40 feet away, I'm sure, but in real life, oof. All right, what else did we? And then this Mercedes was the last car.
Put a bookmark on that BMW because we're going to look at a Porsche today that's in similar condition, and we'll talk about the merits of that car, and then I'd like to discuss them against the merits or lack of merits on that BMW. Okay. So the last car was a 1962 Mercedes-Benz 190 SL. Really neat car from a super cool era. I was struggling to say nice things about this car. And the thing is, I think these cars look really sporty. They just don't drive really sporty. But you said that doesn't matter because what a great car to take your wife and cruise down the strip or go to dinner in. It doesn't have to be a performance car to still be fun to drive. Look at the Volkswagen thing. So anyway, we were pretty interested on this car. I went 129, which sounded high when we were looking at the car at $60,000 with a couple hours to go on BAT. I think it sounded like you thought my bid was high. So you came down underneath me at $110,000, and our car sold for $105. And I'd say that's a reflection of the market for that car, not a reflection of the market at large, because these cars have traded for 200 grand before, and this looks like a nice one. So anyways, congratulations to the buyer. I still think you did well. And JP, you got 3 wins and a Yahtzee to my 2.
Gotta love that extra point. The Yahtzee, thanks for giving me that $360,000 bid that you decided to go under on yourself. Yeah. So that was good news. Thank you. All right, guys, it's time to get to the cars of the day. I just wanted to take a moment before we get to the cars of the day to talk about our sponsor. I really want to tell you about GYX Custom bracelets. Check these out, guys. Deeb's wearing his. I
got an original one. Mine's not elastic. Look at mine's got drawstrings.
Yeah, he's got the originality there. The artist here in America, you order your bespoke bracelet from her, and what you do is you basically give her the paint code to your car, or you tell her what watch you're wearing. If you want the bracelet to match your car, give her the paint code. She'll paint beads specifically to match your car, and she'll design something to match your automobile and your specific taste. If you want it to match your watch, she will make one to match your watch. She has some pre-created designs for specific watches, but if you want something more specific to you, every one of these is handmade. Every one of them is bespoke. Yeah, so no one GYX custom bracelet is the same, and she's been selling these kind of through this underground market. People just kind of find her, and she's been making these things. They're just amazing. But the only way they're now available to the public, but the only way you can get one, this is how you spell GYX, GYX, and the only way you can find GYX Customs is to go on to Instagram and look for GYX_customs. That's plural. So GYX_customs, plural, and literally send her a DM and tell her what you want, and she'll get you set up. They are amazing.
It has become entirely easy to get one of these by going to Instagram, because before you had to go on the dark web. So this is it's really cool that you can just go to Instagram now and DM the artist directly instead of having to jump through all these rabbit holes on the dark web. So
and isn't Father's Day coming up?
Snap!
Right? Yeah, it's like
gift.
There is, I don't know. I mean, because look, these days it's like, what do you get for the guy that has the cars he wants and the watches that he wants already? I mean, what else? What else do you get, right? So that's what's great about a GYX_custom or a GYX custom bracelet, tailor-made, specifically made for the individual based on their likes. I just love these. I have a whole bunch of them. I have them to match all my watches and cars and stuff like that. They're so great. Check out GYX_customs on Instagram and order your GYX Customs bracelet today. All right, let's get to the cars today. Shout out to our friends over at Everyone Racers on YouTube, another podcast. Our friends over there had dinner with Mental last night, and we were talking about Maseratis and stuff, and he had some suggestions for cars, and we didn't take any of them, so we've got our own car lineup of cars today. We'll get Mental on the show one of these days, but let's get to today's cars. I think the big one of the day is, I mean, how can we not immediately talk about the impending fail that is,
I don't know,
a 911 Singer. How can you possibly put the words fail and Singer together in the same sentence? Well, include PCAR Market in the mix, and you have a fail waiting to happen. These guys, tell us about this car, Michael Deeb. This is just unbelievably great.
It is really a really nice car. So there's some interesting stuff with this particular car, JP. Let me see if I can spit this all out. First of all, the car is being offered for sale by Graham Rahall's dealership in Indiana. And Graham is the son of, oh my God, what's his father's name? Bobby Rahal? Anyways, Graham is currently a racer in IndyCar and a really nice kid, and owns a couple of car dealerships of his own, and is a dyed-in-the-wool exotic car collector. So he buys really cool cars, drives them for a little bit, and then tries to flip them for a small profit. So I would go out on a limb and say I would bet an Indian nickel that this thing is his personal car, that he bought it. It's interesting, in the comments, somebody suggests that, as every Singer is built, it's named after the city where the client lives. So this car is named a Sundown Singer, but somebody in the comments says that when this car was first issued, it was called the Rock Island Singer, and that the second owner, when he bought it, renamed the car, which I didn't think you could do, but apparently this guy did it. Graham Rahal seems to be the fourth owner, I think. What we're looking at is a 1990 Porsche 964 reimagined by Singer in California. The car has just 2,300 miles. It gets treated to a 4-liter Ed Pink built motor that's good for 400 normally aspirated horsepower. It has a 6-speed G50 gearbox. One of the upgrades that's really popular with the Singers is to spring for the money that it costs to do a full Öhlins coil-over suspension. And Öhlins, JP, you remember Öhlins from our motorcycle days. They're a Swedish manufacturer that did these beautiful gold forks that had titanium nitride-coated sliders that were really, really smooth, and they give incredible feedback to the rider, or in this case, the driver. So the Öhlins suspension is a big upgrade. This car is painted a stunning horizon blue metallic, and the Recaro seats are done in this beautiful chestnut leather that when you look at it, JP, it looks like a really fine English Chesterfield couch. I actually really like the interior of this car. I'm not a huge fan of the blue for this particular car, but really neat by all accounts. Our car is offered out of Indiana. It has a couple of hours to go, 3 of them to be exact, and the car is sitting on just 5 bids, but at a whopping $900,000. Now, we saw a 6,000-mile Singer fail to sell during the live auction on PCAR Market just a couple of weeks ago. The car made it to I think $1,025,000 or something, and the reserve it failed to sell and wound up in the deal tank for $1,150,000. I actually think the consignor took a deal on that car a couple of days later at $1,050,000. So in other words, $25,000 more got the consignor to let go of the car, which is interesting. This car has about a third of the miles and really good pedigree. I think somebody else famous owned this car before. I think it was what's his name, Adam Levine in LA owned this car. I don't think he was the original owner, but I think he was one of the previous owners, and now Graham Rahal has it. So this car has interesting historical provenance with celebrity owners. So I'd be willing to bet that the reserve on this car is probably closer to $1,250,000. So as I send it over to you, JP, what do you think about celebrity endorsements? What do you think about this particular colorway? And what do you think about a Singer on PCAR Market?
I think celebrity ownership history can add to the value, but it has to be a celebrity, probably one that's dead, and probably one that's just really above A level. I mean, Adam Levine ain't going to cut it. If Adam Levine died 20 years ago, maybe you'd have something. Like if you had Bruce Lee's old Porsche, or obviously Steve McQueen or something like that, or Paul Newman, obviously that stuff brings big money. The thing, once again, PCAR Market, just come on, guys, pull your heads out of your butts. These photos are terrible. This is a car this is $1 million plus car, and you couldn't hire. You guys can't scrape together some cash to get a real photographer to take real photos of a car that deserves images that match. I mean, JP,
let me jump in right there, because that is a fantastic take. If a client is sending you a Singer, a freaking Singer, which is going to bring national attention to your site, you should fly a photographer out there. Don't leave it up to the consignor. Or if the consignor sends you these photos, tell him it's going to take him 24 more hours to list your car, because you are flying a photographer out there to fix this mess. Because, I agree with you. These photos are absolutely deplorable for the caliber of the car.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a Camry in the background of one. You've got, you can see FDC. What the heck is going on, man? This is just, I'm embarrassed for you, PCAR Market. And PCAR Market, to their credit, they do a weekly show or something like that on YouTube. And they've got this show, I think it's called This Is My Car or something like that. And the production value is pretty good. It's still a couple of used car salesmen talking about cars, but it looks good. And they have the capability, I think, with in-house to do proper imaging, but I don't know why the heck they wouldn't on something like this. This is just dumb.
Let me put it to you this way: Singer would never photograph their car in this manner. So why are you?
Right.
It's just, it's awful. Singer goes to the crest like Rod Emery. I mean, go someplace where the sun's setting and take a romantic photo, for God's sake. This is awesome. This is awesome because it looks like it was done on the back lot. It is an absolute joke.
Yeah, and how about some damn video? One, the photos aren't very good. Two, there aren't very many. I mean, I've shown you all the photos here. That's all there is. There's no walk around video. There's no startup video. There's no sound of this thing. There's no driving video. I mean, how awesome would that be? A driving video. There are lots of bespoke one-off Porsche builders out there that make cars that are pretty damn amazing. $1 million Porsches? I don't know, but.
Porsche made one normally aspirated 4-liter motor in their history, and it's a legend. Imagine what this car would sound like shifting from second to third gear at redline. How incredible would that be to put on video? That'd be amazing.
How romantic, and how much, and for the guy who's sitting there going, I want to spend $1 million and $1.1 million, or maybe I'll spend $1.2 million. I don't know. I think that romance is the thing that gets another $100,000 in a car like this. Right now, it just looks like, from these pictures cruising through, it's kind of, was that a Singer? I don't know, whatever. It's a nice, air-cooled car. Whatever. This is just, again, it's a fail. And what's going to happen is this car is probably going to have an even higher reserve than the last one because PCAR Market wants that high reserve so they can sick their used car salespeople after potential buyers in their deal tank. And I think that is just, that is why we really, really have a hard time respecting PCAR Market, because they really do treat our community like a big, expensive used car lot. I have a problem with that. So anyways, this car, where do we think it's going to land?
So JP, they've only made just over 100 Singers in their total production or whatever. I think it's like probably up to like 120 or 130 if my calculations are correct. This car is sitting at 900,000. I think it has a chance to get to $1,150,000, but I will add to that it will fail to sell at that price, and it'll wind up in the deal tank for $1.25 million or more, because I think that's what Graham's going to want. I think Graham wants to turn a profit on this car. He probably bought it for under $1 million, and he's looking to make a couple $100,000 on it. So I'm going to say $1,150,000, but it fails to sell at that price.
Gosh, remember when these came out and people were going, "Oh my God, $200,000 for one of these things?"
Plus the car, plus you had to supply the car.
Yeah. Wow, how things have changed. Yeah. What was your number one more time? I'm sorry.
$1,150,000. So I'm going to say it's going to make another $250,000 before it closes.
That's a lot of numbers. $1,150,000.
Yeah, but this is going to go up.
$1,150,000.
Yep.
I'll go $1,125,000. And because I think it's gonna deal tank. I'm with you. I think the guy's gonna want 100 or one and a quarter or something higher.
Yeah, or 1.3 or more. I think he's gonna want a lot more money for it. So I still don't think this one's gonna sell, even though it'll probably do better than the previous one because it's got less miles and cool owners. But I don't know why are you taking this car to PCAR Market? What is the catch? What are we missing? Because it doesn't, like, how do you use your brain and say that's a good idea? You're burning this car.
Yeah, I mean,
everybody's gonna remember the Sundown Singer is the one that failed to sell on PCAR Market.
Yeah, and the thing is PCAR Market will pat themselves on the back because they'll sell it in the deal tank. But I just don't understand why, if you're at this level, you would want to subject any potential buyer to a used car salesman. And here's the thing: I don't have a disrespect for used car salesmen in general, but when I say the used car salesman, you know what I'm talking about. There is that guy, and that's what PCAR Market is. Frankly, when you watch their show that they have, when those guys talk about cars, they're talking about Porsches not from a romantic point of view, not from being members of the Porsche driving community. They're talking about these cars like a used car salesperson or a used car manager talks about them. They are widgets,
swarmy and pushy, and they're it's that whole "if I could, would you? If I could, would you?" And you're like, "Damn, dude, calm down."
Yeah, they like the cars. I mean, because who doesn't? Everybody likes driving a Porsche, but you don't get a sense that there is a romantic lust for these things. You don't get the sense that these guys, want to spend their weekends going out and drive. I mean, none of those guys on PCAR Market, I would imagine ever driving around in a rusty 1978 SC that's all beat up and absolutely loving it as much as driving a Singer. They want to drive the Singer not because this is just a wonderful car, but because it's a Singer, yeah, the Porsches, man, it's a Singer, bro. You know, too rich for you, pal. I mean, they really are the guy in the Ferrari in Fast and the Furious. I mean, they're the guy that you want to just go smoke him. Screw that guy. So yeah, they don't deserve this stuff. All right, what else?
Let's look at the 78, JP.
Yeah, this is a car. Yeah, holy cow.
Also on PCAR Market, the pendulum swings all the way in the opposite direction.
Yes, it does.
So PCAR Market has found out of Staunton, Virginia, 100,000-mile example of a 1978 Porsche 911 SC Targa that is a silver car that has a... It's got to be the original paint because the patina.
Yeah, that is patinaed like crazy. Yeah,
there's paint and oxidation on every panel. Like on the hood next to the emblem, JP, we are looking at paint that has peeled off where you can see the bare metal underneath it. And as you roll up the hood, you have paint that is completely freaking oxidized. And again, as I wanted to juxtapose this to the Singer, I also want to juxtapose it to that silver E30 wagon we looked at yesterday. Somehow on the Porsche here, this is really cool. You know what I mean? Like my 84 Carrera isn't to this degree, but it's definitely not nice. And you kind of have to appreciate it for what it is. And that is that it's a patina, that it's a driven car, that it's been used, and that it's just been worn. I mean, it's just like a pair of faded blue jeans that have holes and a little bit of fraying. This car shows a lot of age, and it shows it well. And if you have the gumption, if you have the confidence to embrace that, you can't replicate this patina. You can't go to a body shop and say, I want it to look old. They don't, there's no faux finish for old classic cars. It either has an authentic faded patina or it's been restored. And this car has it. And it's just kind of neat. And I picked this car thinking, oh my God, JP's going to love this car because it's really cool in that regard. And I've learned to embrace it on my car, which was a step for me. And so I look at this and I think, oh my God, Ben the Professor would love it. JP would absolutely love it. So we've got a Targa with a black Targa bar. This car has my favorite wing from the era. This is the Turbo Carrera wing, the original whale tail, which never came on an SC. So it's cool to see one fixed on the back of this car. I'm not sure that I love a Targa with a wing per se, but if you had to have a wing, this is my favorite wing, so I'll go with that route. 100,000 miles on the car, $2,000 worth of recent service on this car, probably just to get it running so that it's operable. I imagine just looking at this car that when you get it, you could spend $5,000 on it and never see the money, but have the car running probably a little more reliably. I think this car has sat for a long time. It's been an East Coast car for a long time, so concerns for rust would be relevant. The interior, the seats have little splits in the seats and stuff like that, but the dash has a little crack on it. This is not a great car. This is a starter Porsche for somebody, but it is really neat. And I've learned to love the old cars, even ones that look as rowdy as this one. So JP, yay or nay on this car?
I had to look at the picture closely when it came up on the list because I don't. Do you recall the 77 that I had? I mean, it was identical to this car. I was like, wait a minute, this is an SC? Are we sure this is an SC? I mean, it had the same paint failure on the hood in the same spot. I was like, whoa, is my car for sale?
In my memory Rolodex, I actually thought your Target was a 76.
Yeah, no, it was, well, I mean, obviously a mid-year car, not a whole lot of difference, but it was a 77. So, but yeah, in the same colorway, the same kind of patina, unlike that BMW, black Targa bar, it didn't have this wing on it. It had a wing on it when I got it, but I removed the wing and just put the.
You had the ducktail.
Not on the Targa. No, I had the ducktail to put on the Targa, but I never did. But I wound up putting on the coupe that Ryan has exactly. So this car, the big difference between this and like the BMW that you're talking about is that this paint is faded and failing and having all kinds of issues, but it is original paint and the body work is all pretty solid. It's got dents and scratches and bumps and stuff like that. Yeah. Whereas that BMW has probably been repainted, I don't know how many times, and it's been obviously wrecked and crashed and the fenders kind of beaten out with a raw hammer to try to get it back. I mean, they are not the same thing at all. The BMW is not patina. The BMW is beat down, repainted, and Band-Aids and Bondo and baling wire and shit. This car doesn't have any of that.
When you look at the front of this car and you look at the hood, because this is the thing, most people get it wrong in a Porsche. They lock up the brakes and they slide into whatever they're trying to avoid.
Right.
The panel gaps on this hood look correct. And so this car has never been wadded. And that's the difference. So no matter how roachy the paint looks, when the panel gaps are correct, you've got yourself a little gem because the car hasn't been abused. It might have been neglected, but it was never abused. And that's the big thing here.
This is the kind of car you get it to run well. You sort out all the mechanical bits, and you don't change a dang thing cosmetically. Maybe change to H4s or something like that, or maybe
Momo Prototipo.
Some better maybe a wider wheel set and an ROW ride height, and you're pretty much good to go. It's even got the lower valances still intact with the fog lights. That's kind of cool.
And he's got the original deck lid. The SC deck lid there's a photo of it at the end of the bucket. It's missing its grill. So I don't know where you're going to get that, JP.
Yeah, I know a guy who had one, but I kind of stole it. You can take the grill out of this. You could just take the grill out of your whale tail. Yeah,
but he's got the original thing, which I think would look really cool, actually. And then I would buy that wing off you if you decide to buy this car. By the way.
Done. All right. Yeah. No, this car. I love this thing. If it drives well, how many miles does it have on it again?
100,000.
100,000. That's really low miles for one of these. You got to wonder if it's going to need head work yet from sitting for a long time. Valve adjustments. How's the clutch? There's a lot of little things that can get you in a big trouble. But the good news is it's an SC, and even whatever you do to it mechanically is probably going to increase its value and make it a reliable car. These are pretty dang one of the most reliable cars of all time when it comes to sports
Trivia
cars.
Question for you, JP.
Yeah, okay.
SCs. 78 to 83.
Correct.
Did an SC in the United States ever get offered at market with anything other than a Fuchs wheel?
That's a good question. I don't believe it did. Do you know?
Yeah,
the
right.
Answer to that? Yeah.
No, I'm asking you because I know this guy's trying to say, hey, it's got Fuchs wheels. I'm like, well, hang on a second. Like a mid-year came with cookie cutters, right? Like you could have gotten one of two different wheels on a mid-year, but I'm thinking SCs only came on Fuchs, and I'm wondering if I'm correct. So there you go. We pose it to our audience.
Pose it to the audience. Yeah.
Deeb talking out of his ass again.
Yeah. Now that you're talking about the cookie cutters in the mid-years, did they come with cookie cutters, or was that did people just do that as an aftermarket option? I don't know. That's a very good question. But I know that the SEs all came with food, or I'm pretty sure they did. The other thing too is that the early SEs are better in a lot of ways too because they have fewer smog emission restrictions than the earlier.
So
the later
no
ones.
Heat exchangers on this. They have catalytic converters. Is that fair?
No, they have heat exchanger in regard to the heat function.
Sorry, I meant
thermal reactors.
Thermal reactors. Yeah,
thermal reactors on the mid-year cars are problematic because they soak a lot of heat in there, especially on the mid-year cars with the magnesium blocks. These do not have magnesium blocks, so the SE wound up just being a much more reliable car. Right. So we've got some weeping under here, getting in the push rods are probably leaking and stuff like that. All right, well, we've talked a lot about this car. Where do we think it's going to land? What's the number on this thing?
JP, this car is making money while we're talking about it. Last night, this poor thing was at just where was it last night? It was at, hold on, let me go down further. There we go. 11 hours ago, it was at $13,000 last night. 14,000 8 hours ago. But this morning, this car woke up and started making money. So 14.5, 16, and now it's sitting at $20,000 when we started talking about it. It's at 21.5 as we go to put our money where our mouth is. I wrote 24 grand down last night, but I actually think this little sucker is going to make some dough. So I'm going to go, I feel like 26 is too low and 28 might be too high. So how about I land on $27,000 and send it over to you? What do you think?
Where is this car?
It's in Virginia.
Virginia. Okay. Yeah, I think your number is right on. It's going to be. I don't think it's going to break 30, but I'm going to go over. I'll go 28 just because it might.
Right.
I mean, things are bonkers in
things are
SC
bonkers.
land. So, and someone could be trying to launder some money, in which case it might go for $60,000. We have certainly seen that happen. All right. Well, I think someone's going to get a cool car.
Yes.
Here's the thing though. When it comes to the motor on this car, it's pay now or pay later. You're gonna have a $15,000 to $20,000 bill on this car
to rebuild that motor.
Probably, or at least do a top end rebuild or whatever, engine out service. Somewhere in that $10,000 range.
Change all the gaskets, change all the oil lines, get it cleaned up, see if the compression's there, and if you don't have to open it, don't. And if you do, then spend the money and own the car for a while.
Good news, once you do that, it's money in the bank, and that car is going to run forever. So, I think this is a neat car. Good luck to the seller on this one.
Ben in LA and JP in Vegas, and half of your friends out here in San Francisco are non-pretentious Porsche owners. If you buy that car, your patina and your Porsche are welcome to hang out with us.
Excellent. Anytime. All right, let's how about an F car? We've got a couple of them lined up, right?
Yeah. So check it out, JP, on what's it? Doug DeMiro located for us a 1998 Ferrari 550 Maranello with a gated 6-speed manual. Car has 31,000 miles. It's been in California since the year 2000. It is currently in Santa Barbara, California, being represented by a dealer on behalf of the owner. So it sounds like it's a consignment car. Now, here's the interesting thing. They just list the car as having a service quite a while ago, I think in like 2017, as a major service, extensive service for $8,000. In my mind, that's probably the belts. But those are overdue. So this car needs a belt service. And I would think that, on a 12-cylinder car, that's $10,000 at least. It might have been $8,000 5 years ago, but that's money today. The other thing that's interesting, I was reading the comments on this car, which I rarely do because I don't want to be well informed and make astute decisions. But some Yahoo comes on and says, "Hey, I ran that VIN, and Michael Bay used to own this car. That's the VIN number of the car that was in Bad Boys, and that Will Smith and Martin Lawrence drove this car in a Michael Bay film. That's Michael Bay's personal car." So the consignor and the dealer are not representing it as a celebrity-owned car, but somebody is saying, "I'm telling you, that's the car. That's the right VIN." So it's completely unsubstantiated. But since we talk about the most interesting cars, JP, we accidentally stepped on the most interesting car of the day. So really interesting car, beautiful colorway. For our audience that's listening, Grigio Titanio is it's not dark gray and it's not light silver. It's right in between. And this has Bordeaux leather Daytona seats. So they're not bright red seats. They're like what we used to call in the old days. Remember, JP, we used to call it ox blood interior. This is a deep, rich red color with a black dash and a black steering wheel. It's a gated shifter, beautiful wheels, gorgeous car, just under 500 horsepower. It's like an 8,000 RPM V12 front engine manual transmission rear wheel drive Ferrari. This is just about as cool and as romantic as it gets. And Tazio Otis, friend of the Bid Nerds, his father Patrick repairs vintage Ferraris in Berkeley, and Patrick Otis endorses the 550 Maranello as the last great analog Ferrari that's a 12-cylinder. That the 575 is completely watered down. This is the one to put away. So great car here, JP. What do you think?
Are we saying it's this car?
Yeah,
is that what's happening?
Oh, good for you. Look at that. Nicely done. Yeah, that's this car.
How do we substantiate that? If that's true, I would cancel this ad and redo it. That is insane. How do you not lead with this? Talk about burying the lead. You guys have got to be leading because, forget that Michael Bay drove it. I mean, because really gross. There's probably DNA in the floorboards and a lot of coke. But
audition couch.
Right. But the fact that it was in the movie, that means that's a different the car in the movie is a different thing than celebrity owned. That is a completely different animal.
Go back to that photo for a second, JP, and I just want to describe something for our audience that I'm seeing through my cell phone as I'm doing the show.
Okay.
In the photo that you pulled up of the car in the thing, it has the Scuderia shills on below the A pillar on the front quarter fenders. Our car does not have shields. So if those are authentic shields on the movie car, they would be enamel and they would be put into a fender that has an impression that's made in the fender to receive the shield so that they're flush with the bodywork. However, if the car was ordered without shields and they wanted the shields for the movie, they could have just put stickers on there. So it's hard to substantiate what's on the movie car. But our car in the ad does not show shields. So there is at least a reason to suspect it might not be the right car. But, if the VIN numbers match up, then they're just stickers on the movie car, and this is our car. This is really neat. So very coolly done.
Well, the other thing, too, is a lot of times there are multiple cars, especially in the actual action scenes. Yeah. If they're hanging a machine gun out the door, it's probably not an actual, more, it may not even be a Ferrari, but there it is. Wow, I'm just like, that's freaking badass.
Cool.
I mean, because the 3.6 liter turbo 964 in the original Bad Boys movie, has to be the baddest ass 911 of all time. Yeah. And it's one thing to get a 3.6 liter turbo 964. It would be another thing entirely to get the 3.6 liter turbo from Bad Boys. And I'm not even, come on, man. It would have to be worth 3 or 4 times the amount of money of whatever. Like, if one of those is worth $500,000, the movie car would probably be worth, what, $2.5 million or something like that?
Because the car's appearance in the movie, I think, helped solidify higher values for the model. So the one itself would be that thing. And JP, you said something and we kind of kept talking over it. I agree with you. I think the consignor should have taken down this ad and remarketed it as that car. Substantiate the claim that that's the right VIN number, and then try to get a premium for this car.
Yeah, I mean...
And they have not done that here. This car closes in 2.5 hours, and it's sitting at just $91,000. If this is the movie car, it's a $200,000 car.
Yeah, substantiate that, and you've got boy, is this going to be a hell of a value? Is this an investment opportunity? Because a major detail was completely lost, kind of like when BAT screwed up.
And tell them to buy it.
Yeah, right.
Sorry,
remember when BAT screwed up that Mustang that was like a 1 of 13, and it sold for $17,000, and it was probably a $50,000 car or more. So here we go. Every now and then, stuff slips through the cracks, and honestly, Cars and Bids, not the most astute place to sell your cars. Obviously, Doug DeMuro knows a lot about cars, but that's something that I wouldn't expect him to pick up on or even know to look for. Why would you?
His interns are asleep on this one.
But if that's the case, wow. Where's this going to land with that aside? I mean, it's a gated 550.
With that aside, JP, this is a 30,000-mile 550 in an attractive colorway, similar to the one that was in the movie. And it needs a belt service, so it needs to spend $10,000 on it. So I'm going to say $130,000, and that maybe when you're done, you have a $150,000 car. So you've got equity at that number. But if this is the movie car, JP, belt service aside, I'd say this is a $250,000 car or more. Yeah. But you'd have to substantiate that some way. And it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So I think this car, if people are reading the ad, and I don't know how to say whether they are or they aren't on Doug DeMuro's site, this car could have a very interesting finish this afternoon. But anyway, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm sure people who are interested in this car are reading the ad, but I don't think anyone's going to put their money down based on a rumor that it might be a car from a movie from a long time ago. But that aside, this is a fantastic car, and I'm going to bid over you. I'm going to say $140 because it's a gated 5-speed or 6-speed Ferrari. I mean, this is I used to not really love these, but in the time that we've been doing the show over the last year, I've really grown to love these things, especially in this colorway. Whoo, that's hot.
So hear me out, right? You've got these gear and chain driven cams on the front engine that's in front of you. You put a little exhaust on the back, and this car sounds really good. If you put headers on one of these cars,
oh my God,
it screams like a Formula One car from the 90s. I mean, it is absolutely breathtaking to hear one of these cars. A 550 Maranello with headers, aftermarket headers, will literally turn you on your head. It's just amazing.
Love it. All right, well, let's talk about another Ferrari, and these are always near and dear to my heart.
I've
never
car.
owned one. My favorite Ferrari. Let's talk about this 348. Man, I just love this.
JP, thing. This is a 3-wood shot away from my house in Sausalito, California, just on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge, is a 1994, which I think is the last year of the 348. It's a Spider. It's got 60,000 miles on it, and it's in Sausalito, California. The belt service on this car was done in December of 2019, so the services are up to date. This is a turnkey, fun car to drive, and I have to say that I really like, again, with the Grigio titanium, that sort of medium gray paint job and the black seats, somehow this like exotic Ferrari is, can I say, understated in this colorway. It's really cool. It's very industrial looking, and everything on the car looks even more purposeful and maybe perhaps a little less romantic or pretentious because of this sort of steely colored colorway. It has California black plates on it, which is really cool. Those are throwback plates. What's interesting to note is that when the car came out, JP, in like, I don't know, the late 80s, like 89, I think was the first year of the 348, they made 300 horsepower. But in the final year, which is this year, the cars got a couple of upgrades. So they went from 300 horsepower to 310, and the suspension got modified the way they had modified a special edition of the car in 1992 called the Series Speciale. So just slightly different suspension tuning and geometry, maybe a minor upgrade to the springs and shocks. And so by all accounts, this car has a teeny bit more horsepower, and it handles just a little bit better. And that might go unnoticed in this ad because 348s have never really broke the bank. Values have been climbing in the right direction, but this one with 60,000 miles, I think is probably still going to be a decent value here. So with less than an hour to go, John, our car is sitting at just $43,000 with services up to date. Take it away, my friend. Tell everybody why you love this car.
I think a few months ago, like maybe 6 months ago or whatever, this was for sale on Craigslist in your area, and I told you I wanted to go look at it.
Is that
you remember that?
I think
it is. It's the same colorway. How many of these could be that close to you? And if I remember back then, it was they wanted like $49.99 or something for it. That was before things went a little bonkers. Oh, it looks like it has the luggage too. The Ferrari is that the proper Ferrari luggage there in the front? That's kind of cool.
That's actually a case that holds like the spare tire thing and all that.
Oh, okay.
The tools come in beautiful leather stuff. It's really neat.
These cars, you can make an argument that it's not the best Ferrari, but being a Gen Xer at our age, this car, like you said, came out in the late '80s and early '90s. It had those Ferrari strakes down the side that are just like
super
so radwood. And I mean, nothing screams '80s like this thing. Maybe a Testarossa. It's like a baby Testarossa, and
it really is.
I've said that I think these are kind of like the 964 of Ferraris. They were really unloved, and I think it's about time for them to have their time. And I couldn't agree with you more. That this colorway is great.
You called it, and it's happening. We're watching it happen right now. 348s, I think, today are bringing more money than they have in the last 10 years. I think you absolutely called it. This is a nice one, JP. The miles don't scare me. Ferraris that have been driven drive better. Ferraris that sit are like, they're just, they don't. Old Ferraris with low miles do not operate well. If you're going to buy a car that's 25, 30 years old, having miles on it is going to do you a favor. Everything is broken in. Everything's operating as it should because it's been driven. I bet this car is a hoot. So I think that this car has a chance, John. I'm going to go 59,000. I don't think it's going to break 60, but I'd say it's got another $15,000 in the tank. So.
What was your number? 50 what?
$59,000.
59. Yeah, I'll say it breaks 60. I think it breaks 60. I think I'm gonna go like 65. I think they're kind of like, what else do you get? A 355 is with a 6-speed and this kind of miles is gonna be $120, right?
Yep, absolutely. Twice as much. You're right. You're right.
So this is almost as great a car for half the price. I mean, come on. That's darn near bargain. And I'm still kind of wishing that I would have bought it back when it was Under 50. Yeah, exactly. Even though I'm still terrified. I want an F car in my life, but I know that it's just probably never going to happen because I just can't. I'm too anxiety ridden for one of these. All right. Let's see here. We've got one more car to go, yeah?
Yeah, totally different car from everything we've looked at today. Also on Bring a Trailer is a 2011 BMW 328i sedan, black on black with a 6-speed manual. Now, the 328i employs a normally aspirated 3-liter inline 6 that makes just over 200 horsepower. Let's see if I can find it. 230 horsepower, 200 pound-foot of torque. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but BMW have a way that almost all of the power bands and all the cars they sell in their sedans are very linear, and this car will sort of belie its low spec and be really fun and really lively to drive. Add to that this car is a sport package car, which means it's going to have a more heavily bolstered seat. It's going to have no aluminum trim on it. It's going to have what they call shadow trim. So all of the window surrounds and all the things like that are going to be like a muted black or dark gray colorway to give it kind of a sporty look. And then when it's a sport package car with BMW, you get much better suspension. So the M Sport suspension that's on this car is going to really make it drive like a sporty car. It's a sedan, but when you drive it, you're going to feel like this car is really responsive and very agile. This is a sleeper. I'm telling you, this is a great little car. Offered out of North Salem, New York, with just 86,000 original miles. It's hard to believe, JP, this car is 10 years old already. And this is a great little sedan. I think this is a great pick by you. And man, if you had to have a commuter, you could do a lot worse than this. This is a great car. It might not be the Golf R that the professor drives, but I'm telling you, this is a fun car to drive. That 6-speed is going to be a hoot. Also has Harman Kardon sound, which was probably a $3,500 upgrade to get that stereo. So the tunes in this car are also going to be really cool. The only thing I don't like in this car is that chestnut wood. If this had aluminum inlay, I'd be in play for this car. And I have a big fear of black cars, but this thing is gorgeous. I think it looks great. It's black sapphire metallic. I'm telling you, when it's cleaned up in the sun, that's a gorgeous colorway. So John, great pick, nice car. Somebody's gonna be very happy in just under 4 hours from now. So what do you think?
You know, our friends over at DWA Driving While Awesome, their podcast, they do they do a bit. They don't like to call it a bit. I think they get a little upset when I call it a bit. But one of their most common bits is where they'll get on their podcast and they'll say, okay, if you can have 2 cars, they both have to be German, they both have to be rear-wheel drive, and you can only have 2 cars. What 2 cars do you get, right? Yeah. And I love playing that game because to me, this is the perfect car for a 2-car solution. If you're a classic enthusiast car person, right? You want to spend as much money on the classic car and as little money on the daily as possible, but you don't want to get a piece of junk daily. You still want to get something nice. I think this is the lowest amount of money that you can possibly spend on something that could be considered a modern enthusiast car, and this is absolutely the best bang for the buck. This is going to be, a car that's under $15,000 and it's going to be absurdly reliable. As much as I love the Golf R that the professor drives, those are still $20-something thousand or more, and they're not nearly as reliable, and they're front-wheel drive, and they don't have any torque because they're little turbo things. This has a straight 6, the Volkswagen, what am I talking about? The BMW engine. This thing is absurdly reliable. You're going to have to deal with some cooling issues, expansion tanks and stuff like that, whatever. Those are all relatively inexpensive to deal with. Clutch. This is a bulletproof car. This is one of the last great BMWs. Everything after this generation of BMW really kind of became garbage. I don't think anything BMW makes right now is any good from a reliability point of view. The smaller engines, the turbos, and all that stuff, they're just not going to have any longevity. I really, really love this car. If you wanted to spend all the money, put every dime you can into that SC, and then spend as little money on your daily driver. Yeah, I'm with you, Deeb. This thing is fantastic.
Jeff Harley, who's one of my best friends in the world, works at Ferrari San Francisco, friend of the Bid Nerds, had a white 3 Series E90, that was a 335i with a manual transmission. He ordered the car with sports suspension and aluminum inlay and stuff. That car was awesome, and he let me borrow it. Like you were talking about trading motorcycle with your buddy's car, with your Scirocco for your buddy's motorcycle. So Jeff and I are such close friends. We would borrow each other's cars all the time. He let me drive that car. I absolutely loved that car. It was a fantastic 3 Series. The E90 is a very good platform. I agree with you. They really got it right. It just fun to drive and very good quality. This is a great car.
Yeah, I mean, and look at it. I mean, kudos to the driver. It's got the thick sports steering wheel, and this guy's driving it properly. He's on a back road. This is the way you make a driving video. If you don't have access, you don't need access to the Angeles Crest to find just a country back road and drive it with a little bit of spirit and show some proper driving techniques. You got both hands on the wheel. You're shifting. You're not leaving your hand on the shift lever as you cruise. None of that silly junk. This guy's just having a good time. This is exactly what you want to show in your basic. By all accounts, this is kind of like you said, a sleeper. Car just kind of blends into the background, but at the same time happens to be just an absolutely fantastic performance car. Where do we think this car is going to land?
So JP, it's hard to gauge because this is not like a specialty car that we've seen bringing crazy values. This is this is a widget to most people. Even though you and I know there's a little more here that meets the eye. Sorry, the dogs are barking at strangers. But John, it's at $8,000. It's got under 4 hours to go, and it's way over on the East Coast. I think this is a great value. I'm going to say $11,000. There's another $3,000 in it, and that's a steal.
I think you're right. I sure wish this car were closer because this is a car that I would love to personally own. I've been searching for something like this for a very long time, and just haven't found it. I mean, they just don't exist really. And the only thing better I think than this car would be like the same thing in a 2-door configuration. That would just be cool. So great. But the 4-door just gives you all the utility. Your bid's $11,000. I think that's a great bid. It's on the right platform. It's going to get all the money that's possible, which still isn't going to be very much. I'm going to go $1,000 over and say $12,000.
Yeah, I think you're right.
With the caveat that it may not break 10. I mean, it might just stutter out. This is not. Most people are not going to pay attention to this car. And I think
would this car bring more money on Doug DeMuro's site?
That's a good question. It might get more attention because there aren't. This is one of the few cars that maybe it does.
This is right in his wheelhouse, is it not?
Yeah.
Is that fair to say? This is a Doug DeMuro special on BAT. I really wish it had aluminum inlay, and then I would really push you to buy it. And we could film for 3 days coming across the country together.
Right. Well, I mean, I think for like less than $400 you can get the inlay. Because remember, really? I had that.
I thought it was more than that.
Yeah, I mean, you can find them on eBay or whatever. They're not that expensive, cool. And I had that 328 or it was a 325 XI, which is basically the same car, an E90.
The Seattle car you bought, right?
Yeah, and it was Portland, but I would have kept that car if it wasn't all-wheel drive. I mean, that's the great thing about this one is the 2-wheel drive one. That's really the cat's meow. So, all right, well, there you go, guys. You heard about it on the Bid Nerds. Again, guys, make sure you go to all the cars that we reviewed. Go over to the respective platforms, go to BAT, go to Cars and Bids, go to PCAR Market, and in the comment section below the cars, say that you heard of the car on Bid Nerds on YouTube. That really, really helps us out, and we could use it. We love doing this show Monday through Friday, 5 days a week at 9 o'clock. Stir the pot. Yeah,
start some shit online.
It definitely gets those guys on those platforms a little testy, but they can't kick you off because you're a user. If we do it, they get pretty upset, but you guys can get away with it. So please let everybody know that Bid Nerds is out. The Bid Nerds are out here doing the work for you every day, picking the most interesting cars of the day on all the automotive enthusiast auction sites. Hit the subscribe, like, and notification button as the Z generation says. Smash that like button. Michael Deeb likes to do the smashing thing. And stick around. We've got one more show for the week. We'll be back tomorrow. And Michael Deeb, anything else you want to say?
Do we have a guest tomorrow?
I believe Matthew Weitzel is coming on tomorrow morning.
Nice.
So we will get Matthew Weitzel from Work on Your Karma on the Instagram, also from 914 Rubber. So we're excited to see our friend Weitzel, and we're excited to see you guys as well. Tell us the cars that you want us to review too. If there's a car coming up in the on an auction soon, let us know, and we'll talk about it right here on Bid Nerds, your daily nerd on the most interesting cars of the day on all the automotive enthusiast auction sites. We will see you tomorrow.
Get those words!